Think we're live.
We are live.
Yeah, I think we are. Crap, this is my first stream ever. Okay. Okay, then to the people that might or might not be there, this is out of nowhere, but this wasn't actually planned. I was planning to do a record, but StreamYard was being a bitch, so I had to go live. I'm here with Agent Decibel, the head of the agency that promotes all villains. You know what? I never actually got the name of your organization.
It's called the Villain Defense Foundation.
Of course it is. Yes. Yes, well, we are here today to speak about the downfall of what it means to be a hero and how it no longer seems to be much different from what it means to be a villain and what are the elements that are probably responsible for this great dysfunction. We're going to begin by one that is probably known by many since it probably started all the trends that you see today in modern cinema. If you may know, Watchmen, if you remember.
An interesting story.
Yes, if you remember, it was made by Alan Moore, which goes around fuck, I'm just so sick of that book that I just don't even want to speak about. That's book. Can you take it from here?
Yeah, I recently went through the story again, and as I'm watching this, it's some of the I speak of natural order quite a bit, and basically, natural order is the way things should be. But the problem is to make things the way should be, you have to be able to force it because all life is struggle. No matter what beginning you think of for the universe and existence itself, from the very beginning, everything's been struggle. It's been power. There's a man named Ragnar Redbeard. He wrote a book a while back called Might is Right. Even though I don't agree with everything that he has theologically about it, but he was correct about many things. And when you watch, and it's about basically the rules are made by those who can enforce them. Because any rule or any law that cannot be enforced is merely a suggestion. As you read Watchmen and you watch how everything goes on, you look at the different factions. Well, I would call them factions within. You have the different nations, each one's a faction enforcing its own rules. Then you got the vigilantes, which are basically the heroes, if you will, enforcing the rules of another faction. And then you got the main villain, which would be mispronounce. I'm going to mispronounce his name. Basically,
Ozymandias.
Yes, thank you. I
Ozymandias.
was
Yeah.
I always go right to Ramses the second, but he actually enforced his own rules above that of every single nation. And then on the very top of the totem pole, you have Dr. Manhattan. The man can literally do anything, create an entire universe, if you will.
Hell, he put
And
oxygen on Mars. If you've seen the movie and some of the parts of the book, the guy is basically a demigod.
I would compare him to probably from the old Marvel comics, the original Secret Wars, the Beyonder. The Beyonder was basically a godlike character, but hampered by his inability to know what it's like not to be that way. Which is a long story in itself. Something you probably don't want to read and cover. It's a really interesting story. But every one of these factions, it was always the rules were enforced through violence. And that is the rule of the universe. And Watchmen really hammered that in on many different levels.
Yeah. Oh, apparently we got someone watching. Brightest day is up.
Greetings, fetish scum.
Yeah, how you doing, Brightest day? Apparently this is my first stream, and you're the first person to actually show up. I won't say I feel flattered, but I'll say that I'm a little bit flabbergasted. Let's keep up. But yes, this pretty much gives a moral dilemma about this show, because they were going to face nuclear destruction at the end, but through what they reached with the Manhattaning, as some people calling it, there was a peace because they created through fear. They made an equal enemy for everybody. And that was an element that I enjoyed on that book. Because it shows we humans, if we have an equal enemy, we'll get together without problem.
And the whole thing about fear, people really need to understand the concept of fear. Fear is basically a real or potential loss in the future. Kind of think of it this way: if you punch me in the face, once I've already been punched, I don't have to be afraid of you doing it because you've already done it. But if you hit me hard, I may fear that you'll do it again. The question is, what am I fearing to lose? That would be simply a sense of peace, a sense of not being in pain.
Sense
With
of
the world,
safety, my own personal
exactly.
self-respect, all that.
Fear, the fear is just now. Brightest Day is doing a really good reading on Dune, and they talked about fear. Now, the Bene Gesserit saying about how to defeat it did nothing for me because it doesn't tap on the first principle of fear, which is potential loss. With the world in Watchmen, all the world leaders, they were afraid of losing not the civilians, they weren't afraid of losing their country, they were afraid of losing personal power, of having someone stronger than them make the rules. And so when they all got together, they could easily stop fearing each other because everyone else is in the same position and work
They all
together
fear
to
one
get rid of
man.
the larger fear. So really, the man was right. Fear is the driving principle. Fear of violence. And violence is the driving principle of the universe.
True that.
Cause and
True
effect.
that. True that. I'll admit this: the book, The Watchmen, the book, and both the movie, they both had clear and quite logical messages they were giving. But till the end of the day, I still cannot forgive the story for what it did. You have to admit, it itself was a beginning to something that cannot be stopped anymore. The destruction of the meaning of the heroics. Nowadays, every character of every book, every movie, every cartoon needs to be constantly deconstructed, put down, make it seem pathetic, cruel, and actually villainous, or question his own actions all the time. It can never be just a hero shows up, saves the day, takes down the bad guy.
And see, I
Never
kind of
goes
got a
back.
diff I got a different take out of this. I mean, I do see your point, but the hero is basically in comics before then were the ones that protected and enforced the laws of the state that they lived in or served under. I mean, you can even go into other genres like the Jedi. The Jedi were basically mercenaries for the Republic. The Republic
That
said, do this, and they're like, rah! And they go right out and do it. And it's like,
exactly
and with the heroes, it's always the same thing. I mean, look at Superman's one of his original monikers, the American way. Okay,
truth
what's
and
the
justice in the American way, the best way there
exactly?
is.
But truth and justice is not the American way. The American way is the politics that run it. Truth and justice are separate. And
Exactly.
what Superman served America. He served that superpower, that nation. And with the Watchmen, basically it's everyone who had an ability to push the laws the way they wanted to, even if it's their own moral code, like Rorschach, they just did it. And it was the law until someone more powerful stopped them. Violence stopped by greater violence. And for me, this whole story really ripped apart the idea of hero and villain to basically break down to might makes right. That's what I took out of
True.
it.
True. True. It's a great. Again, the stories were the messages it had were phenomenally great. It really is a beginning. It really was a good story, but it got too much eyes. It got too much of the wrong eyes on it. We can hope for a better tomorrow, but it's not about that because don't go into that shit. Okay, how would I say this? Oh wait, apparently we got some extra people here. Let's go say hi to. We got the Ironcaster here. How you doing, dude?
Greetings, Ironcaster.
Okay, we got the resident antagonist. Apparently another member for your villainous agency to join.
Hey, I
See
like the
by his
name
name.
already.
Okay, Ironcastle was saying it was deconstructive. We need to reconstruct. True, true. We could begin trying to reconstruct the characters that were deconstructed, but at this point, it's become more difficult. As we know, a lot of the characters of the past are being destroyed beyond belief. I mean, look at Batman. He no longer is the way most people used to remember Bruce Wayne. He's getting kicked off the curve by a new, edgier, and, if may I say, blacker Batman. It's just really is impossible with the Mantle's construction. And Resident Antagonist says, disagree. Superman is explicitly a criminal vigilante, as are all the superheroes. Whilst the American way is not a political issue, rather, politicians are indeed intended to follow the American values. But he gets the idea. What do
See
you think
now,
about
yeah,
that part?
resident antagonist. I like that, but the problem is when you got a democracy like we have in America, it's basically whatever the group decides is right. So the American dream or the American way, however we want to phrase it, is based on the present attitudes of whoever's voting. And it's like, and Superman just goes right along with it.
Yeah,
As they, even now with the heroes, especially with the new writers, they're kind of really pushing that, where basically new values are being pushed, and the heroes of old have to get out of the way to make room for the heroes of good or the heroes now. The problem is that violates the law of non-contradiction. Something cannot be both A and not A at the same time. So they both cannot be heroes if they fighting for different values within a certain area because the people hold these values. It's like
exactly.
it when me, I break it down to the philosophical principles. That's the way I think when I look at these stories. And it just gets so muddled. I think Watchmen, I know that you don't like Watchmen that much for what it did, but I think what it did,
Yes.
it was like a breakthrough to really look at and make you question what exactly is a hero. I mean, the Night Owl versus the comedian versus Dr. Manhattan. It's like they're all supposed to be heroes, but they're all fighting for the different things and for different reasons. And the comedian when he shot the woman he knocked up in Vietnam,
Uh,
and it's like
True.
that it was messed up, obviously. But he was right when he looked at Dr. Manhattan and said, you could have stopped it. You could have done anything to that, but you just sat there and watched. So really, if comedian turned into a villain that time and like inaction is basically an action in itself, that would make Dr. Manhattan a villain just for his neglect. So then you got to question what exactly is a hero? Where do you draw the line? Who gets to decide? It's these questions that Watchmen really brought up, which I really enjoyed.
Yes, and I'll admit it really does have good parts. I'm not saying Watchmen is not good. I can't really find arguments to go against you at this point. You are incredibly right. Problem I
But I
have
do,
mainly is with the deconstruction goes. Oh, and I think Aaron Cash's comments pretty great too here on the part because now the heroes we have are only being written one way. It's no longer a equal-sided way. For example, instead of giving it to someone who actually understands the character, Superman's going to be written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, a man who has many times shown to hate America pretty much the American way, something that is Superman. I mean, I don't even know how this man still gets work. I mean, the stuff he says alone.
well, a lot of things in America, a lot of the values are pushed through the media, whether it be movies, comic books, whatever. And that's kind of like basically the gateway of all cultural reinforcement and
Creation?
change. Yeah. You go through the easiest medium because you got to figure like Brightest Days doing booked with Dune. Dune's a very cerebral book. It's really deep. There's a lot of stuff. Some people think it's slow, but it taps into so many different areas of life and government, religion, economics, everything. I mean, it really digs deep. That's not going to get most
Yeah.
people. So what you
Yeah,
got to do
Frank
is you have,
Herbert. Like, I only remember the first Dune book a little bit, but I gotta say, Frank Herbert was a writing genius in many ways.
oh, guy was just amazing. But if you want to reach the masses, like all the great leaders, what do you think they're great, evil, whatever? I mean, you go right back to Alexander, Caesar, Hitler, name them. They always,
All the big
every one of them recognized the masses they saw was being very dim and easily manipulated. So if you want to manipulate the masses, you find the medium that's going to reach the most of them the quickest, which today
write
is
it at your
our
favor
comic
and
books.
transmit it.
Yeah, it's our comic books. Teach the kids while they're young.
Yeah, that's the thing. Most kids today aren't even reading comic books anymore. They're going for the Japanese stuff. They're going
Yeah,
for
and you're not
manga.
going to you're not going to manipulate them.
No. No, they're going either for manga or video games, and not Western video games. Literally Japanese video games. Japan's getting a lot of money. Like,
But I will say,
uh,
Watchmen did bring out. I think it was the beginning of the anti-hero when you bring out like your Punisher, the Badger,
you got
different characters
Punisher.
like that.
Oh, I forgot the Badger. Was this blonde dude with a red suit, right?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't quite read them, but a buddy of mine read them, and it was like,
Yeah, if I
yeah,
remember, he
okay,
was this crazy guy whose psychiatrist was actually allowing him to do all the heroic stuff. This crazy army guy.
yeah.
God,
With
that's so.
even with Image Comics when they started, all their heroes were basically, for the most part, anti-heroes. Even the
Yeah, we got
Wildcats were a mercenary team.
the Wildcats, Spawn, the Young Bloods. All of them were not the traditional element of a hero. They
No,
were
not at
cool,
all.
bloody, and pretty much trigger happy. I still remember some of the books. Some of the most horrific things I've seen in actual comic books as a kid, because I was super shocked. We're reading either the Wildcats or Spawn.
Oh, definitely Spawn.
I mean, the whole story is about a guy who is pretty much a demon killing machine from hell. So yeah,
And
yeah. So
it's like ah, it's like as far as he's willing to take it to protect the woman that he loves. And he didn't really give two shits about society, but it was all about Wanda and his
yeah.
and her daughter
I mean,
Cyan.
you gotta admit. Imagine yourself on his place. You figure out you were dead, then you come back, find out the woman you love is already married with some other dude, has a kid, isn't yours.
Your yeah, your best friend. Your best friend. She married.
Oh right, they were friends. I forgot that.
Terry
Man, I gotta go
Fitzgerald.
back to watching. Yeah, I gotta go back to watching the cartoons, man. They were again a perfect depiction to all those who say that it's impossible to do a perfect comic book. The Spawn cartoons were perfect. Still this day, some of the best.
Resident Antagonist actually made a really good point. They said Spawn did a very good early arc where Cagliostro helped him learn what a hero was meant to be, but he never stopped murdering, mother effers, which, hey, some people just have to die. That's natural
Uh,
order.
yeah, but yeah, I agree. I agree. If Batman one day killed the Joker and broke his neck, people of Gotham would be no. There's no need to put you in prison. You can just go and probably throw him a huge parade. Let's be honest. A lot of people probably would be happier with Joker dead.
See, now you look at the Batman. The Batman, I have a problem with. I see him on the same level as the comedian. You got to figure that the Batman goes, he does what the cops are unable to do, right? But he's not
Yep.
enforcing police code. He's enforcing his own law, which basically the Joker should have been killed years ago. But
Oh,
Batman,
absolutely.
in his impotent wisdom, believes that he can be reformed. Someone crazy.
I
How many
mean, did
times
you
is
ever see Injustice? Read the book Injustice.
no? I have
The
not.
whole point the whole point of that entire series, it all began when Joker grabbed a nuclear bomb, went to Metropolis, got Superman to kill Lois Lane, and made the bomb explode, destroying all of Metropolis. Superman goes crazy, creates a regime, takes over the world. But I don't think a lot of people get that at the end of the day, it was kind of Batman's fault too. I mean, his best friend lost his wife and who was pregnant with his kid, his city, and he keeps protecting the guy who caused that instead of actually trying to help his friend.
It's it. I did a rant on Batman. It's like I
And
like
this
the
is not
character, but
and
it's
this is
like
not just an attack on Batman, because even in the book they speak that Superman is also wrong through the Flash and a couple of other heroes. But in the main of it all, it's kind of hard not to side with Superman sometimes.
See, on a Bryce Day, that's a good idea, but he's too goody two shoe to pull that off.
Oh, well, he kind of has Jason Todd though. He could have probably had Red Hood do that, and no one would actually.
Yeah, if anyone's gonna knock out the Joker, I think Jason Todd. You kind of give him that job.
I mean, you gotta admit he beat
he's
up.
earned it.
He would. I mean, the Joker literally beat him up with a crowbar for God knows how long, then killed him off. I mean, Jason earned it. Bruce has no way of defending this. Jason earns that, but yet he can't. But still, I like the idea of the traditional hero, though. The one who doesn't kill and keeps up with the morality and symbols of good and that.
I guess for me, with the hero is I like the idea because I used to read X-Men all the time. I like religiously read the X-Men. I love the X-Men. I mean, one of my favorite villains of all time is Apocalypse because he's a living testament to natural order. Love the guy.
Yeah.
But it's like,
yeah,
when you got the hero, it's like, even if, like, see, you take someone like Batman or even Superman, which is like ungodly powerful, he will still obey the government that he's around until he decides they've gone too far. And it's like the people, all the people together, like say in Metropolis, can say, well, this needs to happen. Superman can say, like, well, number one, I don't believe that. And number two, I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen. Then who's really in charge? Who's really the one that's running things? And with the Watchmen, it kind of touched on that. I mean, the man's in Antarctica, and he's basically manipulating the entire world. He runs the world.
Yeah.
He's making everyone dance to the strings. Did he have to kill a couple million people? New Yorkers? Yeah. Some people will be saying, well, maybe it's not such a bad idea. But regardless, it's kind of like it's rational transaction. Like Spock would say, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And if that's what it takes to make world peace, hey, if you want to make an omelet, gotta break a couple of eggs.
That is true. That is weirdly true. But yeah. You know, we started this to be a concept of why Watchmen was crap, but in the end of the day, we're pretty much defending its existence. Crap. Things get out of plan. But yeah, I think now, since it's been 20 minutes, we can jump to the other part of this entire stream. And I think this is going to be more effective to both of us because it is a matter that is more important to us. The fall of villainy.
Oh, it's a crime in itself.
Indeed it is. Okay, nowadays, everything we see, every single story, we can no longer have a villain, an anarchistic character who wants destruction for his own means and reasons, who has some kind of superior and ultra idea of everything going on. Now it has to be, this guy has a reason for being this messed up and evil. Like, he was abused as a kid, he hated this, he was mistreated, blah, blah, blah. Can't we just have a guy who waked up in the middle of the day, decided, you know what, I don't like Superman, I'm going to take him out, and then just makes a crazy, complicated, yet good plan to actually do it. Nearly succeeds. Can't we just have that and go with it? Is it that much, dude?
I think one of the problems today is that, okay, like you just touched on, let's say that we'll take Eric Lasher, for example, Magneto. The man was, I mean, we all know the story of what he went through. There's a little bit deeper. I think I've talked about on another stream about what he actually went through and what made him snap.
Oh yeah, I mean, remember he also lost his wife too.
He lost his child.
It wasn't just the whole Nazi and being in an internment camp thing. That was something. Yes, it had an effect on him, but that wasn't the thing that actually made him tick. I mean, he lost his wife, his kid. That is what it does it. That's for being different. That can do it.
And I mean, the man has good reason to do what he does. He will never be accepted. That's just the way it is. And it's one thing to be not to be accepted and people just avoid you, leave you alone. But that's not the way the human race works in this story. The human race will work its way to destroy what is superior, and exactly what mutants are: Homo sapiens superior.
Homo
And so
superior.
he has, so really, the human race forced Magneto into existence. And then they have the nerve to turn around and call him a villain.
Yeah.
And it's like you could
He has.
sympathize with him, because if you were in his place, what would you do if you had? Because here's the thing that a lot of people don't really quite get. Oh, resident antagonist, yeah, make him kill. That's natural order. If the bad guys has it coming, plug them. Period.
Just do it. But if the bad guy can be contained, don't kill him. Just kill him if he's an unstoppable force. If he's literally a guy you know. If you let him go, he'll come back and probably kill tons of people. If that's
Oh
the
no,
case, then go
I would kill him anyway. Get rid of him.
ahead. Dude, you're supposed to defend supervillains. You're just putting an extra target on their back right now.
Hey, villains get things done. But
Yeah,
it's like okay, but like it's like in Power, okay, and I think I've talked about this on another stream. Power has two components. It has ability plus opportunity. We'll take Superman as a great example. Easiest example. Say there's a train full of, like, we'll just make it like it works on people's emotions. We'll just say a bunch of orphans on it, or nuns, or something else that makes people all squiggly, right? Say it's about to
kitties
come
and
off the
whatever.
rail. Yeah. Say it's about to come off the rail. Yeah, we'll just throw some kittens in there too. It's about to fall off a rail to its destruction. Everyone's going to die, right?
Yeah,
Does Superman have the power to stop it? Well, that has to
probably.
answer two questions. Does he have the ability to stop it? Well, yeah, of course he does. But what if he can't get there on time? Then can you say he has the power? What if he can get there on time, but he doesn't have the strength to stop it? Can you say he has the power? Power's got to be ability plus opportunity, and that's what the villains always brought. They always brought power because they had the ability and they seized the opportunity to make the changes necessary that the world leaders and the population was too weak and stupid to do. And they were hated for it.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Most
So
people can't think past the next weekend or the next vacation. Supervillains were thinking 50 years ahead. They were planting a tree in whose shade they may never sit under. The
yeah,
villains were the visionaries.
and I'll admit, even in real life villainy, I'll admit they were monsters in real life, even the most bravest ones of history. But you gotta admit, they kickstarted the things that led to the world we have today. Because let's admit, the wars, the crimes, it all led to the creation of many things. Through war, there is a better need for higher technological advancement, which leads to higher medicine and some better technologies. Hell, the whole race to the moon was between the commies and the Americans, and now we got to the moon. A whole battle between two sides. Conflict is
See,
necessary, and villains know that.
oh, absolutely. Conflict is just the way of natural order. I mean, you can talk to a spider and a fly and ask them to discuss their differences. In the meantime, the spider's eating the fly. This is just nature. It's just the way it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
and people
yeah,
that
that's
think
yeah.
the people that think the world's unfair. Well, is it unfair that the antelope doesn't get to eat the lion instead of vice versa? It's
Yeah,
just
for
the
example,
way things are.
now we have here Iron Caster talking about the Shocker, from the Spider-Man comics. That guy's a guy who needs the money. But let's get here an example. Is he really a villain though? If let's put out if his daughter has cancer and doesn't have the money to do it, and it needs to steal a bank, then Spider-Man shows up and stops him because it's wrong. But at the end of the day, by doing this, he'll be killing his kid. Then who's the real villain in here in the situation?
Yeah, I mean, think about the deeper things. I wouldn't really call him a super villain. He's more of a minor villain or a petty criminal. But then again, criminal doesn't
A
really
henchman
exist.
with the right tools. He's a
Yeah,
henchman with the right tools.
and you got to think that his villain is a super criminal, right? But what's the label of criminal actually mean? Is someone who opposes those in charge at the moment. Like you and I could be criminals or even villains to, like, say, the reigning government in America. But if the government changes hands and they agree with our views, now we're heroes. So to call someone a villain or a
Yeah.
criminal is just basically saying you oppose those in charge. You are in opposition and resisting to the rules that we want set forth. Now, you take like, okay, like the shocker. Daughter's got cancer. He can't afford it. I mean, really, who can? And so he robs a bank. So he robs the bank, but the government's going to cover that bank's losses. So it's like, okay, we could sympathize with the shocker. We could sympathize with Mr. Freeze, what he's doing for his wife. I mean,
Exactly.
when my wife was alive, there's nothing I wouldn't do. I'd go through hell with a couple of buckets of gasoline on my ass to make sure she got what she needed. Because that's what a good husband does. That's what a loving husband does. Mr. Freeze went through absolute hell to do this, and the Batman stops him because the reigning government doesn't want him intruding on their personal piggy bank. Screw
true.
them. So who's the villain?
It's impossible to pinpoint. Some would say the government, some would say Spidey, some would say Shock. You can never know. As long as man has free will, we can never make a straight decision of anything. Because we're too many.
Dino the Wise.
Oh, hey, Dino the Wise. Welcome to this crazy party between two crazy villains who just want to bring some light into the bullshit.
It's like, even like when you watch, see me, I'm a massive Star Wars nut. It was my first love. My wife was just a mistress compared to Star Wars.
Mine was Trek.
Okay, so let's look at something like either the Klingons or the Empire, right? Oh, well, they're evil. Okay, well, who's telling me they're evil? The Federation or the Republic?
The Federation.
Right, but they give you a child's way of looking at the world. They're evil because they oppose us. Well, what are you standing for? What are your values? Where do they come from? Is there a and then my question is there a law higher than yourself? And it's I was talking to a friend about this recently. She and I were talking about a lot of stuff going on with American politics and the whole vaccine nonsense. And I told her, that any government structure, regardless of where it is, fictional or non-fictional, any government structure that does not see a law greater than itself, the people under it have no rights, only permission. Simple as that.
True that.
And when we're given this child's view of the enemy, the Empire or the Klingons, well, that's because these people are telling us that they're bad. I need something a little more than just that one-dimensional explanation. Me, it's like with Gundam. Ironcaster got me into Gundam.
Oh, exactly. The whole show of Gundam is a good example. Both sides want good for one another.
And then you really go back to the very beginning, like Origins, even though they don't say it's canon, which I can tell they can basically lick my
we're going to jump into Gundam.
I'm
starting to consider bringing Ironcaster here because we're going to talk about the whole war sides thing.
Yeah, but it's
Ironcaster, you good to jump in? Keep going. You can go.
It's like with with Gundam with Origins, you actually get to see the beginning of the antagonism between the Zeon and the Federation. And the way the Federation was treating the Zeon because they were outcasts. And you got to realize these people have been born on these things out in space. They've developed their own culture, their own views. They're the furthest point away from the Federation. And it's like people change. And when you have a war break out, it's because, or when you call a revolution, or it's when the greater power is either unwilling or unable to make peace with the people that don't want to do this anymore.
True, because if I was born numerous miles away in a specific location, part of one government, but always ignored to the point where we develop our own things, and then out of nowhere, this higher government shows up and demands for me to be part of it, I would be kind of pissed.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's like, now Resident Antagonist is actually making a good point. The Empire sees itself as absolute, and the Republic saw democracy as a greater cause in and of itself. See, with
Yeah.
me, I side with the Empire, a monoculture with a dictator or absolute leader, because democracy, even through fictional history and real history, democracy, you got male. I think it was Aristotle had said, masculine republics lead to female democracies, which leads to tyranny. Because if the majority of the people have the attention span and the brains of a fruit fly, you cannot let the dumbest person in the room make the important choices.
Wow, that
You,
quote made a lot of sense seeing today's time.
yeah, and he figured this out over 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, history repeating itself.
Yeah, it's
You
kind of
know,
like the
the
saying.
old cycle. The old cycle. They say, strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create bad times, which will create strong men. The endless cycle of humanity.
I use Star Wars as a great example. It's like bad times. The old Republic during the time of the Phantom Menace creates strong men, which would be Sheev Palpatine. Sheev Palpatine got into power. Strong men create good times. He made the galaxy more secure and prosperous. A lot of people didn't like the way it came about, but they liked the degenerate ways. Tough. Natural orders taking place. Get on or get out. And so what happened
Exactly.
was now you have a rebellion because those good times, people get spoiled and they want everything for themselves. So you got the rebellion, which creates hard times, or the weak men create hard times, which is now the galaxy at war. And those basically what happens is the Yuuzhan Vong comes in later on in the series. They are united under one monoculture, an empire of their own. They come in and wipe out almost half the galaxy, which creates strong men, which creates, and guess who came to save the Republic, the new Republic, at the very end? The Empire.
Yeah, and they turn.
Monocultures with a dictatorship is natural order.
Yeah,
It, it's the best way to go.
I mean, and if you followed the books, there was already after the empire fell and the new republic came, another empire was to come too.
Yeah, it's
The
like
original canon.
I think his name is Sir Arthur Glubb, if I'm remembering the name correctly. He wrote a book called The Rise and Fall of Empires. It's like about 27 pages. He breaks down every world empire in our history to 250 years in different phases. And you look at all these different things, and no matter what you look at, it follows the same pattern every damn time. And it's always saved, either it's saved from the inside or the outside by a monoculturalist society with one leader. Every time. It always
Yeah,
produces order.
yeah. Because I'll admit it, if you look at democracy, it has a ton of flaws. Because, as I said, different people always want different things than the other person, and most of them will always look for the thing that would most likely be better for them specifically.
I think it was Benjamin Franklin here in America that said, true democracy is two wolves and one lamb voting for what's for dinner.
Wow, that sounds
It,
pretty accurate if you think about it.
it's like, I mean, I've actually had arguments with womanists when they would say, like, like democracy and stuff like that. When I was actually dumb enough to get into political debates with these, I call them
People,
womanists. Yeah, I
look,
call them womanists because basically that's what it is. But I would
look,
say,
for all the
okay,
young
so
people out there, don't go in a conversation with stupid people. They will constantly berate you till the point where you drop to their level of stupidity.
I do it just to troll them. And it's like I would ask them, it's like, okay, let's say that like 10 men and 5 women are part of a group and they vote what is considered rape. So what if they vote against your ideas? Are you going to go along with it? I mean, democracy, you're going to support it? Calling me names is not good. That's not an answer.
That's exactly not an answer for anything. And as we talk about villains, I gotta say, but I do, let's go back to the villains as we were talking. I
Okay.
do agree it is good to create a complicated and complex being. For example, you ever seen the Transformers Prime continuity?
Which continuity?
It began with a cartoon, the Transformers Prime.
No, I'm a G1 kid.
Right. Well, you see, in this continuity, Megatron, well, he was a simple gladiator from the world from the battle pits of Chaos. Well, he saw how his part of the civilization was being mistreated, and as such, he wanted to rise the political ranks to become a prime, a leader. But he was refused because they liked Optimus Prime better, because he actually spoke about peace. I may be speaking this wrong, but as such, he exerted war on Cybertron, slowly becoming the thing he wanted to fight. He became an usurper. That's a good image of a villain. That's a fun image actually to a villain. Someone who wanted to do good, but slowly became evil because he realized society would not take him as the leader.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, when it comes to, like, say, politics and everything, I actually talked about this in a video. I think it was actually my Megatron video I talked about when I defended him. And oh yeah, Resident Antagonist. I'm definitely going to look up that book. But
and you have some good points too on that one. I gotta admit.
And see, Ironcaster and I, we had talked about the left-hand path versus the right-hand one. We've actually talked about that in depth. That's from the world of tradition from the old days. That's a whole nother conversation. But when I talked about with Megatron with politics, is when Megatron wanted to get into the political sphere, right? So let's say he even does make changes. Let's look at the past, fiction and nonfiction, where this has happened. Recently in America, Trump got in. Both sides that are supposed to hate each other joined up to get rid of him because he was a threat to the system that gave them their power. You know who wrote about that? Adolf Hitler in Mein Kampf. He even said, when any outsider comes in that threatens the system itself, both sides will join up to get rid of them. Hitler talked about this almost 100 years before Trump took office. Megatron, the exact same thing. To try to make a change within the system is foolhardy because the system itself must be protected above all else. So if the system is protected, again, it's protected from all other opposition, and that's even opposition of the citizens, then that's basically you're saying that this system is above the citizens and will be used against the citizens if those in charge don't get their way. That's democracy. That's why it has to go.
Democracy at its finest, definitely. Because there are even some continuities where we see possibilities of where Prime actually wins, and in the end of the day, it may not be tomorrow, may not be after tomorrow, but in a couple of years, it'll all go back to shit again. Someone else is going to take the position. Megatron can just do the chaos because no system is completely right.
Well, if you look at nature, if we want to look at nature, natural order, you look at insect colonies, you look at lion packs of lions and stuff like that. There's always one leader. There's always a leader of the pride, the colony, whatever you have. It's always the strongest and best in that position. In the world of tradition, when it came to leadership, it wasn't who was the most popular. It was they set up, these are the values that we admire. So we find the one who most fits those values. That's the leader. Because the leader is someone who's supposed to aspire to be like. When you look at politicians around the world now, I don't think there's a single one you can aspire to be like.
Oh, no, absolutely. Right? Unless you want to be a murderous, power-hungry jackass who probably couldn't even make it on a fist fight, then there's a lot. But actually someone you want to inspire from, no, not a single one.
And see, Ironcaster just made a good point. Inward group preference versus the outside. Any political structure that doesn't work for the citizenry is against the citizenry. It is us versus them, meaning that we, the population, are them. So when that happens, like I talk about in my Megatron video, if the rules and laws do not serve and protect you, then neither does its punishments or its penalties. If you make me an outsider, I'm a barbarian. That's fine with me. But just remember, you wanted this. Because I was willing to play along. And that's what
You were
Megatron represented, barbarianism at its finest.
yeah, true to that. All I can say is that it is those were you know what's great? All these villains that we just talked about, from Megatron to the Empire to all of them, they were all great, memorable. They had reasons that were understandable and made so much goddamn sense. Even the real ones, till this day, they're still remembered because they were well written. I may ask you this question: look at any villain of modern history, either books or comic books, games. Tell me one which you will actually even remember tomorrow or after is dead. Tell me one.
If there's one I could say I really admire and I really enjoyed, I'm trying to remember the name of the character. There's a movie called Law Abiding Citizen. And the so called antagonist was a father whose wife was raped and murdered in front of him and whose child was murdered because the child unfortunately walked in and saw what was going on. This man used his wealth, and what he did was he used his wealth and his knowledge because the guy was incredibly smart, and he studied a book called On War by General Karl von Clausewitz. I have this book. The guy's an amazing writer. And he employed these laws not against the people responsible, not so much against the people responsible, but against the very system itself that upholded and protected the criminal over the citizen. And he basically made a rule: if you are fighting to protect the system, you have to die with the system. And as one of the very first things he actually did was he actually went to court, defended himself, won, and then threw it back into the judge's face about how freaking stupid she was for allowing that to happen.
Wow.
It is an amazing. This guy, I wish I remember the character's name. He was great.
Garrett Butler?
Gerard Butler. Yeah, Gerard Butler played he played the antagonist, and he did an excellent job. And it's like but yeah, if you haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend it. It's like
I've never seen it.
It's like I used that guy at the very end of my video about what makes a good villain. When I asked if you had the opportunity and the resources, wouldn't you do the same thing? And it's exactly what the man did. He had the power, he had the resources and the ability, and he took the opportunity. And he damn near brought the entire city down to its knees by himself. That was a great villain. He was awesome.
Yeah, I gotta admit, a character who's driven by. Well, okay, was it wrath and vengeance that was leading him to go? So
No,
then, if
actually,
he was awesome, it makes sense.
and it wasn't blind vengeance. It was the fact that the lawyer that was played by Jamie Foxx, which was actually supposed to be prosecuting the guys that killed his family, didn't even try. He took a plea deal. And Gerard Butler even told him, if you would have tried, I could have accepted that. But you didn't even do that. He was more worried about his record, his win record, than anything else.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's very psychological and very deep, but it was a great story.
Now that place is starting to sound like Gotham.
See, now that city needs to burn to the ground. Just burn it. I mean, no man's land, cut it off, burn it. When it's burnt to the ground, throw salt so nothing can grow there. Just get rid of the whole thing.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, but you gotta admit, the housing there is pretty cheap, so of course people are gonna move in.
Well, you think about it. How long has Batman been doing this there? And yet there's
About,
still...
well, if you count the Robin's age, Martin continuity plus his, about 25 years.
Okay, let's be generous. Let's just say 20 years. 20 years, and Gotham is still like many cities in America, like Chicago, Boston, Flint, Detroit, whatever.
Portland.
Extremely high crime, a lot of poverty, a lot of problems, right? Because you can actually go and kill every cockroach in a house. But if the queen is still laying eggs, or the cockroaches laying eggs are still going on, you're not solving the problem. And the
You're
Batman
creating it.
is going after the criminals, but not going after the system that helps produce the criminals. Because what is a criminal? Someone who's going against the reigning power structure. If the reigning power structure, let's just take the whole communist Marxist idea. Let's say they're hoarding the wealth, right? Just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
If they're hoarding the wealth, the Batman being a billionaire, which I mean, personally, I think he's done it for his own personal wealth to protect his interests. But let's say that he's doing that anyway. He's actually helping the people with the money keep the other people down. He's enforcing the very system which creates all these criminals.
Okay, hey, for a second, we gotta say goodbye to the resident antagonist. Thanks for being here, dude. See you later.
Oh, absolutely. Good having you here. I like you. I like the way you think.
Yeah, hope to have him next time too. But yeah, go on. What you were saying about?
But it's like, let's say that the Bat's doing all this stuff. He's upholding the very system that creates all these problems. And then the police say, oh no, these people are actually going to try to fix the problem so they can actually make a decent wage, going on with this whole Marxist idea. The Batman's like, nope, I'm not doing that. We're not going to let that happen. So he goes in, beats up the guy, trying to make his life better, and has the nerve to call him a villain. And then throw him in the loony bin saying he's crazy because he has the nerve to question the status quo.
Well,
to me, I mean, honestly, to me, the Bat's the greatest threat to Gotham.
That's not 100% wrong. That's not 100% wrong.
But that's just the way I look at things.
I mean, this guy goes out in the middle of the night dressed like a bat, beats up people for God knows what kind of reasons.
Yeah, well, why does he get to do that? If I, like, say you dress up like a wolf and I dress up like a hamster or whatever, we can't go out there and start smacking people around. We're criminals. Oh, but the Bat does it. We're just going to turn our head. I'm like, oh, so now there's two sets of laws. One that applies to him, but not to us.
Yeah. That's just the way it is, dude.
So is it really a law, or is it just a suggestion?
I'd say it's a suggestion, because it's either this or you get your ass beaten. So,
I mean, it's like, okay, what part of the Bat uniform do I get to put on before I start being able to go out and beat the shit out of people? Is it just the cowl? Do I got to wear the gloves too? What if I have one boot and one glove? Can I just half beat somebody up? I mean, it's like, where do you draw the line?
Well, apparently, the first thing you got to do to start doing this crap is find the Bat Cave and just say his name. Yeah.
And it's like, I mean,
don't forget, Bats is also immune to this too.
It's like the man's impressive and all, but it's like you're basically supporting the very system that creates all the crime. You are helping protect the crime. By attacking those you call criminal who are trying to actually get past all this stuff. And you go out and beat the crap out of them. How is that any different than the mob?
It's not different. It's the same thing if you think about it.
Okay, I mean, if we really want to look at villainy, let's look at, like, say, the government of Gotham, right? Any government, really. Governments don't make money, they take money, correct? Through taxation and all the other stuff. Okay, so let's say they do that. A mob will go out, send people out there to beat the crap out of you. If you owe them money, they feel that's theirs, even though they're stealing it. And they'll break your legs or whatever and kidnap you, whatever, right? How is it any different than the police force going out? You owe us money, the IRS. I say, no, that's theft. But if I don't pay up, you come after me with guns, beat me up, kidnap me, put me in a cage. How is it any different?
There's no difference.
No difference. Taxation is legalized piracy.
Yeah.
And so when you got a villain that comes along and says, enough of this shit, we're not going to do this to the people anymore, what happens? The heroes jump in to stop them.
And probably beat the crap out of them and put them in cages.
Yeah, great thinking, heroes. Glad you're on my side, jackass.
Okay, we've been at this one for a long time, and I guess it's time to go for the next and probably final part, which I know is probably going to hurt you more because it hurts me too. But we're going to have to talk about the fall of the superhero in general.
The fall
And
of the
pretty much the comic
superhero?
book.
God,
Yeah.
if only. Yeah,
Oh, come on.
everyone's just misunderstood. That's such a dumb concept. Oh,
Okay,
he's just he's just
that's what
misunderstood. Okay,
that's
so now
what the
they're
modern villain is being treated as. It's like I just misunderstood. I mean, I think Ethan Van Sciver said it better than any of us will probably ever get to say it, but remember correctly.
Comics open the door to left-wing activists. They say, nice hobby that you have. It's a little bit sexist, don't you think? Maybe you better let us in to fix it. Bitch, it wasn't made for you.
I really think only the guy knows how to say it better. Because you gotta admit, he's right.
You know what? You let any of these blue-haired freaks, when I'm doing my comic, and tell me that it's sexist or racist or whatever istrophobe you want to do. Like, here's an idea. How about you stop me? How about you force me to change my mind? How about you do that? Roll the dice. Let's see what happens.
Oh, you don't know. These people are fucking crazy.
It's like, I will show you what a villain is.
They are so crazy. They will probably to go after you. They would take their phones and cry on Twitter over how bad you are over and over again.
Yeah, well, number one, I don't care about Twitter. Too many womanists. They don't like me. But it's like David Sim. He did Cerberus the Aardvark. I believe it's David Sim. And I actually read one time where he said that basically he actually found a way around the whole thing. He said that he did his own drawing, inking, coloring, even his own shipping. And he said, when you take care of everything and they can't go after anyone that supports you, like financially, all they can do is piss and moan. And that stayed with me. I read that in the early 90s.
Yeah, that is true.
Because I'll be making my own comic, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do my own drawing, my own inking, my own shipping, the whole thing. So if anyone doesn't like it, they're going to have to come to me. Bring it. Bring me your pathetic concerns. Bring it to me.
True. There is no better than this.
No business coming in here and ruining it. You killed the comic book industry, and you weak ass fat beard cucks who let these big nice hobby that you have.
But you gotta admit, he's right. A lot of the modern writers today, specifically the male ones, are too afraid to actually speak. They keep themselves hidden because either A, they want to get some, or B, they don't want to get fired. And that is the evidence. These guys are pussies.
Yeah, I really wouldn't call them men. Being a man's a title you have to earn.
Yeah, you got to earn it by standing by yourself, even if it has to be alone.
Oh my God, I don't know who said it, or I can't remember who said it, but it was really good. They said male feminists are actually predators pretending to be house pets.
Oh no, that is reality. Oh, seriously, look at most male feminists. A few of them literally have records.
Yeah. I mean, even when you want to go into something like in America with Antifa, most of them are pedophiles and all the other. They got horrible records. So
absolutely.
Ironcaster actually talked about it. It's like family. It's a tribe. It's people with shared values joining together for mutual protection and support. Yeah. That's your tribe. And I don't really buy into the whole left-right thing unless you want to talk about the world of tradition, which yeah. See, my values. When I say I'm old school, I'm like 3,500 years old school. And it's like, but the thing is, like, everybody's tribal. Every group's tribal. And when you get you get the weaklings, like your male feminists and your womanists, and they cannot survive in a world that depends on honesty, strength, and integrity.
Hard work. and proving yourself.
They cannot survive. They require degeneracy to survive.
Degeneracy, stupidity.
That's why they're always either pro-democracy, pro-socialism, pro-communism. Because outside of that is natural order.
Exactly. Exactly.
Speak out. Going to be like, oh my goodness. Even though he is 100% absolutely right about this problem, I do not want to be attacked by cat ladies on Twitter. I'm afraid of that blue-haired lamb whale. I'm fucking Ahab. I'm Captain Ahab of the blue-haired lamb whale. Fuck them. This hobby means something to so many people. You be Captain Ahab too. Tell the truth.
Exactly. This to some people, this isn't even just a hobby. It's a freaking way of life. A lot of people have taken examples and inspiration from a lot of these characters. Hell, as a kid, I used to ask myself, what would Captain America do? What would Superman do? What would Aquaman do? Every time I was up behind a situation where it hit me through the wall. Those characters can shape souls.
I was kind of more thinking, what would Magneto do at this point?
No, come on. You already know. He's going to tell him to bow down and use his powers to take him out.
And see, now you look at the villain. Look at the villain of the old days, like say of the 80s and 90s, right? Before all this, before the womanists got in and started feminizing everything. the villain was the one that stood up on his own, said, you know what? I reject your society. I'm not going to have access to your resources. I'm not going to have access to the laws. I'm going to be against this. They're the ones that stood up against the entire world and said, no, I am fighting for what I believe to be right. It's going to hurt at first. It's going to be bad. A lot of people aren't going to like it, but it will be good for the world thereafter.
Yeah, you got to admit, those guys were the ultimate badasses. I mean, look at the modern heroes of today. Okay, look at Magneto back in the 80s. Now look at the heroes we have today, like these new champions and new warriors. How long do you think it would take for Magneto to kill them out?
How long would it take the average person to smack one of these girly men in the mouth and they start crying? And then they start going on Twitter complaining about how they've been abused. It's like, get the fuck out of here. I mean, Magneto was a Holocaust survivor, right? He could have done what everyone else does. Cry about it and write books and make money off it. Wow, I was oppressed over almost 100 years ago. Fucking get over it. That's halfway around the world, no one gives a shit. But I was like, he could have done that. He could have been a whiner. He could have been a crybaby. Magneto said no. He actually tried to get along with people. He actually tried to work with humanity. And humanity said, F you, you're one of them. We will never accept you. So he said, fine. I make asteroid M. I'll make a haven for others like me where we can live in peace. And what happens? The humans still go after them. I say, screw them, wipe out all of humanity, leave the mutants, make it a better world. And if I'm human and I have to die, hey.
Okay. There's a guy I know who's asked to get in on this, and he has his ideas on it. I'm gonna bring him in just for the warning. He is very spiritual. He is also a fan of the books and comics, and he might bring a lot of chaos into this. So just be prepared, dude.
Always.
Don't worry, he is not crazy. He is very sane and very follower of the truth. Don't worry. He is a sane person. Still waiting for him to show up, though. Never mind, I already sent you the link. Where is this guy? Okay, let's wait.
Talk about what's gone wrong.
Okay, wait, he's here. Hey, Nerdman, how's it going?
Hello?
Yeah, hey, Nerdman, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
It's all good.
You were streaming.
Yeah, it's my first stream, man.
Oh, cool. I'm on your first one. Excellent. So I'm putting your stream in the community chat. So I'm going to put it up on Twitter.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, Okay, let me introduce you to Agent Decibel, one of the agents of the Supervillain Defense Agency. He's a fun dude.
Villain
Man,
Defense
how's it
Foundation.
going?
Doing well.
How's
How
it
you doing,
going?
sir?
Yeah, you said you had some points to bring on this conversation?
Well, the downfall of the meaning of superheroics and villainy talk. I mean, it's something that I'm always saying. I don't think, a lot of movies we're seeing these days are really superhero movies. I think they're action movies with people who may have like some enhanced abilities, but you're not really seeing the grand superhero movie anymore. With the kind of big operatic themes that superheroes have. And that's what I don't like about them. I think they're meaningless. I think they have no substance.
Thank you.
I can go along the lines of the ones I feel that about. I don't know if you're going to agree with me on some of them, but that's my main problem with modern day ones. Like Man of Steel is one of them. Completely betrays the character of Superman. Tries to do the grand theme, operatic kind of stuff, but completely betrays what Superman stands for. And then you've got like loads of MCU ones where it's just some dude who can run fast and or you not run like at super speed, but run fast, has agility, has like enhanced strength, and it's all guys who can do karate or some stuff like that. It's not like big thematic superheroes like like Batman or Superman, or Spider-Man even, where there's a theme to the story, like with great power comes great responsibility, right? There's a theme underlying Spider-Man that character is a symbol for universally, and that story, a good Spider-Man story is always kind of coming back to that. Batman, it's always about that vengeance, or like, can he balance the darkness within with his impulse to be a hero? It's big themes, right? You don't get that these days. It's just, yeah, I don't know what you think of that.
No,
No,
you're on the
I
ball.
agree. You're pretty
Yeah,
right
you're
on
on the
that part.
ball.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you can go, Decibel, if you want to say something.
yeah, actually, you made a good point. It's like you're speaking of like the values. It's like with the new writers today in a world without objective values, because all of objective reality, especially when you come to the supernatural, has been eliminated from society. Then it's basically who says is good or bad is who's the one with the pen. And it's like whoever's writing it, they are deciding what's good or bad. It's like we were speaking before about any government that does not recognize a power greater than itself, then basically it's might makes right. And with the modern superheroes, I actually watched a lady. I can't remember her name. Gosh, she was stupid. She was actually talking about the X-Men, saying people today wouldn't hate the X-Men. They think they're pretty cool. You've literally just
Uh,
destroyed
uh,
the entire essence of the X-Men.
What's her name? She worked on Livewire. I know who it is. Ava something.
Do you mean Ava
She's
DuVernay?
No,
I
no,
mean
no, no,
Ava.
not her. Not her. That's not. She wrote the Children of the Atom book. What was her
Oh,
name?
okay. Oh, so you guys are more talking about comics, right? Because I thought you were more
Comics,
talking about like.
movies.
Oh,
We're
okay,
talking about
forget
all
it.
this stuff.
Yeah. But
What
I
was her
agree with you.
name?
I think there's a kind of nihilistic impulse. I was having this argument with, MCU fans just recently, and I was like,
I got
you
it. Vita
know,
Ayala. We're talking about Vita
oh,
Ayala,
yeah, okay,
the village idiot.
cool. Yeah.
pretty much.
I want to hear the rest of your point, but yeah, if you take away the hatred humanity has for the mutants, then you're not telling a mutant story. And too often, I think people's politics, right, like personal politics, a lot of the time, because there's a lot of left-wing writers these days, they take their personal politics and it's like I don't mind someone adding politics to a story. I think that can be actually quite good sometimes, but they take their politics and they infuse it in to the point that they lose track of the meaning of the characters, why those characters exist, and why they mean so much to people, why people relate to the story. And if you take away the hatred that the X-Men have against them by humanity, I think you're just, I don't know, you're telling an X-Men story. Just like if you take away with great power comes great responsibility from a Spider-Man story, you're not really telling a proper Spider-Man story, you know?
Yeah, it's like, and
That is true.
everyone gets along. It's like the Vikings said, peace is death, and peace has become the death of comic books. If everyone gets along and everyone's fine, everyone agrees, there's no more conflict. There's no more conflict. You've just killed the industry. Congratulations, you're idiots.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, have you seen the modern X-Men? They don't look like the X-Men. I mean, they become a bunch of racist, genocidal, pretty much maniacs who pretty much want to get rid of humanity. They even say it out loud. They're not the X-Men anymore.
No, well,
It
that's
would
not
actually
the
make more
X-Men.
sense if they turned them into the new villains of the comic book industry. Something.
Well, I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind it's kind of like the old days. It's like the heroes of old. They represented the values of the old regime, the old culture, whatever you want to call it. So now they have to be the new villains, and the people, because it's kind of like throughout history, the new ways always come. The new ways, the new culture always comes in the form of sin to the older culture, and they always try to destroy the older culture to make way for the new. And then when that one gets established, you'll even become even more degenerate. So the heroes of old have to become the villains. They have to be seen as evil. So any values they hold will automatically be seen as evil. Therefore, they're the villain. And it's like,
Yeah,
do people not see this?
yeah, but I think one has to be careful though, because that's one of the impulses I try and go against to make sure that I'm correct about my assessment of films. Is that I'm not like saying, "Hey, I grew up, my superheroes had this, or my superheroes had that. They don't have it
Yeah, you sound like those
anymore."
old timers who say "back in my day."
Yeah, it's not like I'm saying that's what you're doing. I just try and be careful about that. Like, um, you know, it's funny. I mean, the only movie I like, because I don't really. I'll be quite honest. I don't really care about the MCU too much. Like whether they violate their characters or not. The only one I really gave a shit about was the Hulk. I thought, because I grew up on the Bill Bixby thing, so
Yeah, you gotta admit the Hulk didn't get a lot on the stick of the MCU.
oh yeah, he got completely shit on in the MCU, I think. But it doesn't, it didn't really bother me a hell of a lot. Like the MCU characters, they can do whatever they want with them. I really don't like it. It doesn't bother me that much. But when they start fucking with Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, I think those, and even Spider Man, say, in on the Marvel side, that for me bothers me, because I think those characters do be unrealistic in the real world. But it's nice to have that in a comic book. It's nice to have that ideal to look up towards, to be like, as I think you were saying it earlier, Fenya, like you would think, hey, what would Superman do in this situation?
What
I,
would
I
Captain
want,
America do, and what would
I want,
Aquaman do? Yeah,
yeah, I want kids who read these comics to. I did. I was a kid reading these comics and be like, yeah, well, what would Superman do in this situation? And I don't want them thinking Superman would just violently break someone's neck, or because he's stronger, he'll just assert
yeah,
his
and
will
that's
on
the
them.
sad part.
Like
That's
as
the
if
movie
might just
Superman.
makes right.
That's
You
just
know,
the movie Superman that kids are being introduced to today. Back in the old comic book, Superman would try to have a conversation before starting a fight. He would fight if necessary. He
right?
would
Exactly.
actually be careful not to harm his enemies.
And
Just knock
the
them out.
whole point of Superman was always to, like, if there were, I remember there's the whole old classic thing. You remember this? Sorry, what's your name again, buddy?
Yeah, he's Agent Decibel.
Agent Decibel.
Agent Agent Decibel. I think you remember this. It was the old kind of trope of the Superman stories, right? Because right, so they always would be like, one of the villains would put Lois Lane in danger, or they'd put Metropolis in danger, right? Or they'll
Hmm.
put Lois Lane in danger, or some other thing in danger, and they'll be like, "Oh, you've got to save one," and it's always like, "Oh, should Superman save Lois?" Right? Like, because that would be for his own personal interest rather than putting the needs and whatever of the many, or not, sorry, the needs of everyone, above his own personal interest.
Right.
So Superman would always find the impossible third way. That was his whole thing. Like, even if
True.
it was between, the city and Lois, he'd find a way to save both of them. The impossible third way. And that was his whole thing. He was the superhero of the impossible, right? Like when there's no hope left, he would be the hope that was at the end of everything, and save the day, um, without betraying his values. Right? He'd
Yeah,
always do that, and that's what made him somebody to look up to. That even
yeah.
when his own self interest was the easy way to go, he'd still find a way to forego his own
To
self
save
interest.
everything the right way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do the best for everyone. Um,
Yeah, and I mean the whole Man of Steel movie was pretty much ridiculous. It was literally made to just put Clark to the point where he's gonna have to kill someone. Because literally, there are many ways he could have stopped that and solved it.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to harp on about Man of Steel too much. It's just like a good example of what you guys are talking about.
It is. It is
But
a good example.
that for me was like a sad day, because in a way the movie isn't terrible either. It's not a terrible movie. There's some well-made aspects to it. So there's always going to be a contingency of people who like it, who don't get what the Superman character is, and don't understand that how much better it would have been if they had have done something like that, but still kept to the true values of Superman. How much more powerful the movie would have been, how much more resonant it would have been.
Oh, it would have
But
been
now,
phenomenal,
now
especially if
everyone
they
just
kept
thinks,
the trunks.
yeah. Now everyone thinks all you can do with Superman is make evil Superman. That's it. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing. It's like evil Superman. It's like the man. It's the Man of Steel syndrome.
Well, he has
Yeah,
to be the villain. Now he has to be the villain because he represents a better way.
Yeah. Well, they played into the cynicism of our time. Instead of having him elevate above the cynicism of our time, they made Superman as cynical as our times.
exactly.
And
I
that
would
was,
I would be pretty happy if they gave him the same personality of his old school runs from the '90s and so on, with
yeah,
a bigger high cheek and wanted to change the world for a better.
yeah. They should have gone Alex Ross, man. You can never go
Yeah,
wrong with Alex Ross. No.
absolutely. His art is fantastic, and most of
He,
his stories. I mean, have you ever read his Justice book? Pretty great book.
yeah, man. Fantastic. Agent,
I have not read it yet.
Decibel.
Agent Decibel. Sorry. Why don't you have the names up on the things? Anyway, yeah, you read it.
I
Oh,
have
you
not
haven't
read
read
it.
it,
I have not yet.
man. Alex Ross is at his finest in that. That dude gets the essence of DC characters, bro. All of them.
Oh, absolutely.
All of them. He gets exact. Like, they should have based the DCU of like his work and a few others, like Mark Waid, and a few other people, even Jeff Johns, even though they did kind of. But I think if they had taken that as a template for the mythic scale of what superheroes should be, I think they would have done something really different from the MCU, but
Yeah,
really
but you
as
can't just give
compelling as well.
all the things to Alex Ross. You also have to give some to Paul Dini because he helped write a lot of that. I'm just saying
Paul
the
Dini?
greatest comic book making team is Alex Ross and Paul Dini.
What are you
Can't
talking
disagree
about?
on
When
that.
did Paul Dini work with Alex Ross?
Oh, he
On
helped
what?
write the Justice book.
Oh, did he? I thought that was all
Yeah,
Alex Ross.
nah, he also was
Oh,
into it. The
oh
two worked
okay.
a lot together back in the day.
Because I liked Alex Ross's, the one shot books. I wish he had have made them longer. Honestly, they were so good. Where he just did
Absolutely.
Wonder Woman, Peace, Batman, Vengeance, Superman, Hope, and then he did the Shazam one as well.
Was also Shazam
Remember?
Hope too.
Was it Shazam Hope? No, it was
Yeah,
Shazam something else, wasn't it?
yeah, it was Shazam Hope. Superman's one was when he was trying to deal with the world's problems like hunger and so on. And in the end of it, he solved it by not using his powers, but by being a simple farm boy who teaches others how to take care of their own problems.
Right,
Oh no,
exactly.
not that. Personal responsibility. That's everyone's kryptonite nowadays.
True.
I personally I like Thanos' idea of solving the issue. And that was another thing with
See,
like we're talking about villains. Is did anyone ever stop to ask Thanos what the plan was, why he would go to such extremes, why he felt this was the only choice?
Nah, I don't think anyone even thought about that.
No, they didn't. They
no,
just sicked people on him.
that's what this guy's talking facts now. Look, I've been having this debate. I don't know if you've been watching Fenya on my channel. I've been having
No,
this
I've been
debate
watching
with
some of your
people.
videos, yeah.
Having this debate for so long, where I'm like, dude, that's the problem. Like that's a whole mythic aspect of the superhero is the confrontation with the villain, where the villain and the superhero talk it out, and the superhero tries to not if it's an anti-hero. Obviously, if it's an anti-hero, you don't really have that moment. But like when it comes to like Batman's, Superman's, and sorry, like if it's Punisher, you don't talking to the villains, like or somebody like that, like or Spawn, right? They're not made to be like having the conversations with the villains like that. But like when it's Avengers, X-Men, even Charles and Magneto, you expect that little discussion where, especially with someone like Thanos, where his plan was so ludicrous, where the superheroes would actually go, hey, we're not just going to win because we're stronger and we can beat you up. We're going to win the intellectual argument as well. So, why we are the heroes and you are the villain. Because that movie, Infinity War and Endgame, they don't really demonstrate why Thanos is wrong. You
Exactly.
can
And I mean,
presume. Yeah, go on.
this is why I kind of thought it was crazy that they really changed the story from the comic books. In the story in the comic books, Thanos only wanted to impress Lady Death, but here he wants to literally just save the universe by erasing half of the population, which doesn't actually seem wrong. Why do you
Yes.
change it if you're going to make Thanos the hero?
See now in the comic
Well, I don't
books,
think it makes him a hero, but I don't think it shows why he's wrong. But go on, in the comic books, go on.
yeah, the comic book he was in love with Lady Death. Yeah, he was a bit mad. But Death was an actual specter that did manipulate and seduce him. So he did have reason. But in the movie, in the movie here, Death had Lady Death had nothing to do with it at all. This was simply a matter of mouths versus resources. No one sat down. What if the heroes sat down and had that discussion? I mean, we've seen that like in Avengers Civil War, where Cap and Iron Man have that argument about signing the Registration Act, which I think was kind of ironic because back in the 80s, the Mutant Registration Act went through with the comic books, and all the heroes were like, yeah, you should sign that up. You shouldn't have anything to fear. What's wrong with you? Oh, you're just being unpatriotic, blah, blah, blah. Well, when it comes to them, all of a sudden now it's an issue. I'm like, you hypocritical sons of. But it's like, at least with Cap and Iron Man, honestly, for me, that was one of my favorite parts of that movie is them discussing that. And I was on the side of Cap on this one. You signed a contract with the government, but the government changed its mind. The government can become corrupt. You know, you have to think these things through. And it's like, but no one, I mean, okay, one thing about villains I've learned, extreme measures often come from extreme desperation or instances. Why would someone go to that depth? Okay, like one of the greatest teams I've ever experienced was with the X-Men was Chris Claremont writing, Jim Lee drawing. When they restarted the X-Men, it was either 91 or 92. When the first issue, Magneto pulled up a Russian nuclear sub that he himself had sunk because they attacked him and pulled the nuclear weapons out of that sub, brought it up to Asteroid M, positioned them against every single major capital in the world. If you guys attack us, I will fire every one of these at once. That's power. And he didn't threaten it. If you don't do what I say, he wanted the one thing that most villains want, even some heroes like Hulk, just leave me alone. Quit
But they
fucking
couldn't do
with
that.
me. They wouldn't do that. Unable or unwilling. Because the humans figure that Magneto would think like them. Deceptive, evil, want to take over everything. They couldn't. They were looking at the world through the eyes of Homo sapiens, not through the eyes of Homo sapiens superior. Because even Magneto, just like the X-Men, both of them wanted to live in peace, coexistence. Magneto tried. He really did. He tried. The humans wouldn't allow it. And on top of that, they didn't just shun him, they would attack him. What choice does he have? What's going to be the natural response when you put someone in the corner like that?
None. I mean, it's just literally the same. Attack back. You just want peace. These people don't give you peace. Sooner or later, you're going to break and just goes for it.
And then you cry like a little bitch when he's better at it than you. You know, like
Yeah.
I've always said, you get to choose who you fuck with. You don't get to choose how they respond. You attack a passionate people, expect a passionate response. Simple as that.
Exactly. And yet, till this day, no, not a single movie could represent this exact same emotion as the books have.
And now, Tara just made a good point. Magneto was powered by hate. That's a very important part. What is hate? But the response, a reaction to a threat to that which you love.
Yeah, he was. I mean, remember, he saw his wife get killed. In the moment he actually wanted to retire, this was actually a good scene from one of the movies. He wanted to retire, made a family, then out of nowhere, just because of fear, a bunch of people show up and kill all of his family. And what he does, he kills them all in seconds.
You know what? I watched X-Men Age of Apocalypse the other day, and honestly, I don't know it's as bad as people make out. I really don't. I think it's fine. It's 7 out of 10.
The apocalypse in that movie.
Apocalypse could have been done better.
A lot better.
Apocalypse should have been done better.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind Apocalypse should have been done better, but like...
Absolutely. And I mean, they just thrown in a lot of things. Okay, you want a good depiction of the apocalypse? Go see the old X-Men cartoon.
Yes. Absolutely.
The 90s one. Yep. Go see it, dude. You're going to enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, of course, man. He's amazing in that. Like, everyone's amazing in that. Like, that was series for...
I mean, this is why this is one thing. I actually think superhero stories only work literally in cartoons. Because in cartoons, you have animation that allows them to do the crazy moves. You only have to worry about the voice. And you actually have the time and moment to actually do all the developments and story acts without constantly making it go super fast.
Honestly, I think it's been done well sometimes. I think Batman Begins, I think Shazam did it well. I think like a few movies of like I'm not saying Shazam's one of the best movies of well, it is one of the really good movies in a comic book history.
It's a lot of fun.
It was a fun one.
I think it's more than fun. I don't. I think the movie has substance. I think it has some heart in it as well. I honestly do. And like there are bits. I was trying to find it where, like, Billy confronts, Savannah, and he's trying to tell him how the demons are tricking him and stuff. I think that showed the wisdom of Billy. I think there's a lot to that movie where, because it's just funny and it's got like a lot of childlike elements, people don't look at like the really, really good comic accurate depiction of Shazam that's a homage to all of the Shazams, right? Like from New 52, like to the older ones, right? It gets all of it in there. I think it's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I mean, the movie was pretty. Okay, the modern book, the movie was pretty accurate. The only thing they took out was Black Adam, but at that it
Right.
was accurate.
But they made Billy a little bit more sympathetic in this movie than even the comic book did,
Yeah, with the
right?
whole thing with
Like,
his mom and so on, and
yeah,
figuring
so
out
they
his
took
family.
the only thing I just wish they had made Billy younger. I like the actor who played him. It's nothing bad about the actor, but Billy should have been younger. He's not Spider-Man, He should have
Yeah,
been like,
probably 10 years old would have been a better choice.
I'd go a bit like, I'd go 12, 12 to 13. I would have picked like that kid from the Room. Can't remember. He's like the new big kid. Just the new kid that's like big in the movies. I mean, it's Jason Trimbley or something. Something Trimbley. Anyway, we've gone off
Okay.
topic. Sorry.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Okay, we were talking about the fall of the meaning of hero, and we put a lot of points on that. How today a lot of heroes are constantly being driven into the edge with ridiculously stupid reasons and put to do things they would never do: kill, destroy, lie,
What
all things they
Tara
would never
actually
do.
Tara brought up a really good point. They've taken away the hate, because when everyone's accepting, there's no longer hate. You can hate the enemy, but the thing is, hatred is an opposite side of the same coin as love. Let's say I hate this group over here because they threaten my family. And hatred is not something that's taught. It's not something that just pops out of existence. It's the thing is a response to a threat to that which you love. Now, say that my family, I'm protecting my family, and this group over here, whatever they may be, wants to hurt my family for their own reasons, right? I will hate them and I will stop them and use that hate as a driving fuel to stop them. But the thing is, even with immense hatred, like you take someone like Magneto, he still wants to be able to he loves the mutants, he loves his tribe, his people. He still doesn't want to take it so far to become an absolute monster where it'll make his own people look bad. Hate does have limits. Hate is a focus on one particular thing, that enemy, but also you don't want to become that monster. They've taken away the hate because somehow now hate's bad. And everyone gets along. What the hell are you fighting for then? What are you fighting against? Then
Nothing.
it just becomes preachy to you. You shouldn't pick on these people because of some abstract quality, color of skin or gender or what have you, something. And that's the one thing that really drives me insane. All these ists and phobes, hatred only comes from a conflict of values. It's like saying that I hate someone because they're the color black, right? Okay, that means it's like, you ever see the movie Don't Be a Menace? I think it was
Oh, I've
Bernie
seen that
Mac.
movie.
Okay, Bernie Mac's being the cop, and he's like,
Yeah.
he's saying like, I hate black pepper, I hate Oprah's gums, funny things like that. He's showing how ridiculous that idea is. I don't hate.
True,
Hatred
true.
only
I mean,
comes from a conflict of values. So if
true.
someone declare the enemy, the only thing that tells me is that the person that like, okay, like say if you tell me, well, Brightest Day's a horrible person and everything, right? My first question would be like, okay, what do you think is right and what do you think Brightest Day is right? Then I will decide which one of you is the actual bad guy. but that's only going to be if I agree with your values. Because whoever's the villain, sometimes you relate to them. Like I relate to Magneto. I can see Magneto's side. Over, I can see the human population. The human population's wrong. Magneto is right. And I can side with him. Well, now all of a sudden, I'm a villain. I'm the criminal. And it's like you have to think beyond the surface level. Hatred does not come from abstracts. It doesn't come from color of skin. It doesn't come from gender or whatever sex you're born with. It comes from a conflict of values. And that's something that most people don't really get.
I don't get how you're relating the two because, okay, Magneto to a certain extent is right because of the mutant kind of phobia or whatever that or hatred that people have or prejudice that people have against mutants, right? Like, so obviously within the context, he's right to, but he's trying to fight that hatred with hatred of them to say, no, we're superior, you know, no, instead of like, you know, what Charles is trying to do, which is the only sensible way, because Magneto's way leads to even if he's correct. I mean, it will only lead to self annihilation. Like the humans will attack the mutants will attack the humans until we're all dead, and then you know that hatred will continue. Maybe the less powerful mutants, you know, maybe even if the mutants survive, maybe the less powerful mutants more powerful, and then there'll be a civil war between them, and it just goes on and on and on, right? Until like it, you know, an eye for an eye, and we'll all go fucking blind. I don't think. I don't think. I think as idealistic and weird as Professor X is, somewhere in the middle of those two is what is the right approach, right? Like, I think you know, Professor X is kind of, you know, he's a little bit too peaceful in and non-confrontational, right? In terms of his approach to humans, whereas Magneto's too on the hatred side, where it's just like anger's just going to consume you. You know, I'm a black guy. I know that there's racism in society, but I'm not going to hate all white people, you know, because of that, because that doesn't achieve anything, because all that does is make them hate me, and then I hate them, and then they hate me more, and then I hate them more, and on until there's nothing left, right? But like bitterness. I never think that's the right way to approach, even when you're discriminated against within society. You don't fight it back with more discrimination, because, as you said, there's psychological reasons. Even if there are people out there who harbor prejudiced feelings, and that conflates within society to disadvantage minorities sometimes. Even if that's the case, right, those people, there's a reason why they felt like that, why society, you know, how society, you know, normalized certain types of feelings, right? So you have to confront those reasons, those base issues, just like you have to confront the base issues of why amongst certain minorities, there's high crime, for instance, right? You have to tackle the cause, not the result, you know?
Well, the thing is with Magneto, yeah, it does. This argument I've actually examined. I actually did a video on why Professor X was wrong. I actually kind of tapped on this. The thing with Magneto was that someone will look at Magneto and say that, okay, he hates humans. His hatred of humans is a response to the hatred they showed him first. Now, the thing is with Magneto, he's not prejudgmental. Magneto is post-judgmental. Prejudgmental, prejudice, if you will, is, you know, like making a judgment before you have any facts, before you have any experiences to go along with it. Magneto has decades of experience of the humans hating him. And instead of confronting them, Magneto's tried to get away, to separate himself. Segregating yourself from another group that doesn't like you is it's a peaceful option beyond conflict, because diversity plus proximity is going to equal conflict. It always does, because some people just can't get along. So the best thing to do is just separate. Magneto tried that, and the humans still come after him because they're terrified that Magneto's going to use his power to take away their power base, take away whatever they have. He doesn't want any of that. He can get his own stuff. But the thing is that with the humans hating the mutants is hatred because of skin color. It was more basically, this is more about potential power, fear. Humans have a well-rationed fear against mutants because the mutants can easily take them out. But the fact that humans have existed for so long, and some mutants like the X-Men actually fight against other mutants that do want to do that, like the Great Man Apocalypse, should show them, hey, maybe this isn't what we're doing. The problem is, though, Magneto is not prejudiced. He's post-judgmental. And that's why I look at Magneto, what he's been through, what he believes. I looked at the arguments. I'm like, yeah, I see the man's point. And the thing is, he loves his own people. And like, because every group's tribal, we all are, as in some degree, whether it's on the family level, on the racial level, on the national level, whatever, even sports teams, you're tribal. Like, I like this sports team and you like that one, so you're bad. It's just the way that human beings think. And Magneto wanted none of that. Magneto wanted to, you know what, we're just going to go over here. We're going to go up in space. We're going to have our own society. There's even mutants like Exodus who actually wanted to perform at Exodus, just get the hell away from humanity altogether. But the humans are always the ones pushing and fighting and starting crap. Magneto just has a very powerful response, and he's gone to great lengths to try to make the point. Magneto could easily wipe out the human race. Really wouldn't be that big of an issue. But the humans are just too stupid to understand that this is what's going on. That, hey, they don't even stop to think, like the whole argument with Thanos. No one stops to think, to sit down. Let's interview Magneto. Let's get him an interview. I actually had a comic, Magneto #0, which actually talked about his history and why he does hate the humans. He doesn't hate them because they're human. He hates them because they want to destroy what he loves. Hatred is always a response to a threat to that which you love. And that's exactly what it is. Humans love power. They love control. Mutants are a threat to that. They fear it. Therefore, they hate the mutants. But the humans are dumb enough to try to do something about it. And it's like, if I go into a yard and I smack a pit bull on its mouth and it bites me, who's at fault?
You. It's you, dude.
Yeah. So you know what? Like the humans, don't want any, don't start any. Because one day, what happens when the X-Men decide, you know, we're not going to try to stop Apocalypse anymore? And then we have the series, The Age of Apocalypse, which I highly recommend. It's beautiful.
Exactly. Sometimes some people just respond to the attacks. And these are great points that the old school comic books gave. It's sad that the modern ones can't even do it anymore.
It's because these people are one-dimensional thinkers. They've abandoned philosophy, and that's the worst possible thing the writers could have done. They abandoned the deeper aspects of, because you can't even have a hero or villain unless you want to have some kind of fundamental understanding of good and evil. Because if not, it's just whoever wins, might makes right. And when
True.
these people have no moral ground, no moral framework above their own, what in the old world they called filling their bellies, when they have no moral framework other than their satisfying their carnal urges, then you're just nothing more than an animal. And you got animals writing stories about humans, people, when they have no idea what it even means to be like that. That's why the modern writers can't write about heroes or villains. because they have no idea what they even means. Good and evil is however I feel it is. Well, if I disagree with you, I'm the villain, which I always am, which is like, whatever. Call me stinky poopy head. I don't care. Changes nothing. You can call me any istrophobe you want. You can call me the worst possible thing in the world. It doesn't matter because it changes nothing except for telling me that you disagree with me and you cannot articulate a standard logical argument against what I think. If you can show me where I'm wrong, show me where I'm wrong. I'll change my view. But calling me stinky poopy head or istrophobe doesn't do the job.
Well said. Couldn't say it better myself, my friend. Said. Well, I guess we've been at this for a very long time. I mean, 1 hour and 45 minutes. That is one of the longest things I've done. So I think we should probably put it up to here. Does anyone else have anything to say?
Oh, I'm good.
All right, then. Okay, to the public who watch this and those who watch in the future, thank you very much for sitting up till this part. I know we're a bunch of crazies, but we just want to say what it means to be a hero, what it means to do adventures and writing great. All of this has meaning in the end of it, so never underestimate it. Never just one side, always think about both. Okay, and if you did not like anything I or my guest said and hate me, well, screw you because I hate you too. I followed the methods of the great J. Jonah Jameson. So yeah.
Welcome to being a villain.
Have a great. Yeah, that is a great path. Okay, leave a like, subscribe, put a comment there, hit the bell, whatever. Peace to you all.